So you're thinking about traveling full time, whether in an RV or just working remotely and getting to see the sights of the world. But if you're going to do that, you need an address, don't you? And where does your mail and your packages go, and how do we keep track of our taxes, and do we need a driver's license, and how does that work? Well, don't worry, we're going to cover that today. It's a topic I'm really passionate about learning about right now because, well, we're going to travel full time, and that means that the more research we do now, the more you can learn with us, and we can have a better experience on the road. So the first thing I need to introduce you to is the term called domicile. Domicile is the address well, domicile is actually more of a confusing term than that because for most of our life, our mailing and domicile address are one and the same. When we have a stationary place, those are the one and the same. But domicile is actually really a case-by-case thing. Many things online say it's wherever you can get your mail for your taxes and all those things, and they're kind of correct. But the larger, broader idea of it is that it is a place where you intend to live. But you're gonna travel full time, so how is that even possible to have a place you intend to live? Well, there are a few things that can show that you intend to live. So not only do you have some kind of address, which we're going to talk about how that works, but you have your vehicle registration there, your health insurance, you're insured there, you have your voter's registration there. You maybe have a library card or some kind of local membership. Any storage facilities you have are in that state. The list can go on and on and on and on. And this is where I need to make a disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer, and the more that I've done research, I feel like having a lawyer before making this pretty big life-altering decision is also pretty important. So in my research, I found 3 primary states that people tend to have as their domicile address or location: Texas, Florida, and South Dakota. Now, this is largely because a lot of their laws and policies are based around the idea of encouraging RVers and full-time remote workers to have residency in their state. For instance, most states, consider Tennessee or Iowa, require you to be in that state for 183 days out of the year. That's about 6 months in total. And if you're trying to travel full time, that's not exactly practical. So let's consider these other states. They offer no income tax. Many of them only require 1 day to 30 days out of the year that you are physically present in the state. And of course, laws are constantly changing, so I encourage you to read up on the most current information. And I'll have some links and info below, but again, do your own research, talk to your own lawyer. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of things to prove that you are indeed domiciling in a said state. Now, the reason those things are important is because oftentimes the state you're moving from has taxes and on your income and doesn't want to lose you as a resident. Now, what I saw online, there were some states that are more pursuing of you, wanting to legally take you to court and have you prove that you are truly a resident in this new state. And so the more things, physical things that you have in a state to prove that you intend to reside there, the better. That's why moving your storage locker, getting a library card, a tennis membership, whatever to prove, and of course then canceling those from your home state are important. But the other thing to consider are some of the laws. Now, again, not a full lawyer here, but something I did learn recently is that South Dakota has been changing some of their laws in terms of what the definition of an employer and an employee is. And some of that means that they won't consider you a domicile if you have an employer that is not in the state of South Dakota. And they one of the hoops they might make you jump through is paying the taxes from your home state. Again, this is something to talk over with your lawyer if you're considering South Dakota. Texas, one of the drawbacks is that you have to bring all vehicles with you to the state and have them emissions tested and inspected. And then that leaves Florida, which, depending on where you're from, can be quite the drive and distance to get there, etc. But let's say we got all those things out of the way. You've picked your state. Now what the heck do you do next? Again, requirements will change from state to state, but in general, there are a few things for you to do. Now, the first thing to set up is your virtual mail service. Now, I'd never heard of this before, but say you don't have a relative in the state you're wanting to reside, or you really don't want your relatives seeing your personal mail. Well, then you get a virtual mail service, and they scan your packages, your letters, and they just scan like the front external cover. And it gets sent to a dashboard where you then get to take a look and say, please open this letter and scan it. Shoop. So they open it up, and they can charge you either for the number of things that you open, how many letters you get, for the front and back of each page. Every mailing service is a little bit different. So you go through with this mailing service, whether it be Escapees or America's Mailbox, My Mail, or My RV Mail, or some other service, and they each have different pros and cons. What I did read, though, is it's really important to do your research on this. A lot of people have had issues with traveling mailbox, not always sending the right stuff, shredding things if the name on the envelope was different. For instance, say you have a business, and so they mail something to your business, and they're like, well, that's not your name. If that's not registered with them properly, they'll just go ahead and shred it. This could be how you lose checks and other important tax information. So make sure that you are going with a service that has been well trusted and reviewed. And the other thing is, the reason that you're getting a virtual mailbox is because this is going to become your domicile address. Not every virtual mailbox system, though, is accepted widely as a domicile address. Some banks won't recognize that as an address. So before you just pick any random virtual mailbox, make sure that you can establish that as a domicile address. That's important information before choosing. And then also look at their monthly or annual fees. And I have a special bonus tip regarding this that will be at the end of the episode, so stick around. Step 2 is then to change your domicile address or your current address to your domicile address for any insurance policies that you have, whether it's your car insurance, your personal insurance. Change it over, because those, for many states, can be a form of documentation that shows your new permanent address. Step number 2 is dependent on the state. So, for instance, Texas requires a vehicle inspection. So go ahead and have your vehicle inspected, and then move on to step 3, and then move on to step 4, actually, where you can register your vehicle for your state. Now, this could take a few weeks for your title to come in, but your vehicle is registered, you have the important documentation, and then report to the Department of Public Services to get your actual physical license. And with all those steps in place, for most states, you are now a domicile resident. I think Florida has special documentation that they want you to fill out in addition to this, but check with the DMV, check with other articles, and again, check with a lawyer before proceeding. So with that, you've now established your domicile address, and the hiccups should be fairly minimal. While it can seem like a large and crazy task, if you take them one by one, it can be a fairly smooth process. And while I can't say I've done it yet, I know that we're planning to soon. So if you are wanting an episode to check out, this is a really great one that goes into a little bit more detail. But I did promise you a bonus tip, and this is one you need to hear. So you're beginning the process now. One of the most expensive parts of switching from your actual address to the domicile address is the changeover mail. You know, you went to the USPS store, you said, hey, my address has changed, please forward all mail. Well, now all these other businesses are going to be like, hey, we heard your address change. So then they send you more and more and more mail. Well, you want to cut back on junk mail. You want to cut back on credit card checks or credit card mail and any of that unnecessary mail. And you can actually be doing that today with two different resources that I have for you. The first one is dmachoice.org. This is a recognized one for only $5 or $6. You can have all of your promotional mail taken away for the next 10 years. So it puts you on a list, and a lot of promotional companies will take you off said list. So they said expect about an 80% drop in promotional mail within about 2 months, 2 to 3 months. So you want to be doing this ahead of time so that you can identify the promotional mail that hasn't been cut out and find other services to use to cut back on that promotional mail. Additionally, you can all use a program called Opt-out Pre-Screen, and this takes you off majority of all credit card mailing systems. So you can do this electronically online, and then it'll stop that kind of mail for the next 5 years, or you can fill out a form and mail it in, and this will stop it permanently, but it can take about 2 months to take effect. So knowing that, I recommend that if you're going to do full-time travel, that you be doing this before you establish your domicile address. But, of course, at any point in time, cutting out the extra junk mail is just a nice relief with our mailing systems. Anyway, so I hope these tips have been helpful for you, that you're excited to establish your domicile address and to be traveling abroad or within the States and not feel like you have to constantly be tied down to one place. But again, you need to do this in a respectful way and while obeying our leadership and authorities. So that is one of the reasons as a Christian I recommend talking with a lawyer. Is we are commanded to treat our leadership and our government with respect. And so as a result, obeying the laws is a big thing, and it just helps reduce some of the stress once you're out and about on the road anyway. If you like this episode, I would recommend checking out this video. If you're going to be traveling remotely anyway, you may be looking for some co-working or co-living situations where you can connect with other people, have stable internet, etc. And so we go into all of those important details there. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today, and until next time, safe travels and God bless.